Safety 365.
Safety 365, where our goal is to help you navigate more safely through your daily activities and understand the importance of taking proactive measures to safeguard yourself. Today, we'll be addressing the topic of community safety and how the things like, let's just say, soft on crime initiatives and protests are affecting our individual safety. Today's show sponsors are Bolo Stick LLC, the door barricade device, and Rolf & Son Painting, where they don't just paint your house, they beautify your home. Happy to be joined by Traci Timko, longtime friend, prosecutor in the Warren Law Department, and tell us a little bit about yourself there, Traci. What's going on?
Thank you for having me here.
Happy to have expertise like you on the show.
I appreciate that. I've been a prosecutor at Warren Municipal Court for the last 22 years.
You're only 23 years old.
Yeah,
Right?
right. When I started, maybe. Not even that. I've been prosecuting there for 22 years. I spent the first 3/4 of my career there working the courtrooms, and then I moved into the police department, Warren PD, as full-time police legal advisor, where my primary goal was getting the department compliant with a consent decree.
There may have been a few little bugs that I needed to work out
There
there,
were
but
a
you know
few
what?
bugs,
Those guys have a
absolutely.
hard job,
They sure
and they
do.
do a great job at trying to make things right. So.
Absolutely. It was designed at improving relations with the community, and it did that.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. Like I
yes.
said, I've worked with I've been retired 2 years, so I'm going to say I probably worked with 2/3 of the department down there, but now it's maybe 1/3.
Yeah, right.
Everybody's
It's
kind
a
of
young
through attrition. It's
department.
becoming younger.
Yes.
So yeah. I mean, a lot of great people down there. And Traci, I've known you for buku 30 years.
Yes.
I knew your mom, who was a
Yep.
deputy.
Yes.
Your brother, who's a deputy.
Yes.
Your nephew, who's a cop.
Yes.
I think it's like a blue bloods kind of thing there. It's a family business or what?
It is. There's a whole lot of law enforcement in my family. That's what I grew up in. That's what I come from. And it's that public service. If you knew my mom, you knew that's where it all started for me. And my mom loved people. She really did.
Oh, she was a blast.
She
was a blast.
She was. And I would say we would go places and, she would run into criminals that she put in jail and sent to prison, and they're hugging her.
Absolutely.
And
That's what it's all
thanking
about.
her.
It's
It
not
is.
that you're the bad guy,
Right.
when you're arresting somebody.
Yes.
It's you're serving a purpose. It's the
Yes.
cat and the mouse.
Yes.
Sometimes the cat wins.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get the mice and we put them away.
Right.
I've had similar experiences. People
Yes.
leaving a drink chip at a bar or something for me. I'm like, where'd this come from? A guy was over. He said you arrested him, but you treated him really nice. So he sent this over. Like, that's validation.
It's
And that speaks
huge.
volumes of person. So.
That's police legitimacy, and
Yeah.
that is, I do my job and I do it fairly and I treat you well, but I have a job to do.
Yep.
If you're acting like an idiot and I have to change course, so be it, but you set
I can
that
be the nicest guy
tone.
you ever met or the biggest jerk you're ever going to meet.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
And that's the truth, though. But I mean, it's, you wear a lot of hats as a cop,
You
as
sure
a
do.
prosecutor, I'm sure, same thing.
Absolutely same thing. Yes.
You see it, you've seen it all,
Yes.
I bet. And then
Yes.
some things are probably still going to surprise you.
One of the things I say I like most about my job is that there is rarely a day, but certainly not a week that goes by that you don't say, "Are you kidding me?" Still,
I've
after
actually
22
seen you
years.
in court doing that.
Yeah,
Like,
I go,
are you kidding me?
yeah, no,
Like,
you can't be for real.
Not much surprises me
Yeah.
anymore. Like I see things on TV, I read things, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's America. That's
Right.
where we're at.
Yes.
Well, I heard through the grapevine that you may be looking to be the next judge down there in Warren Muni Court. Is that
This
true?
True. I am. I've officially announced my campaign for judge in Warren Municipal Court. Judge Ivanchek will not be pursuing another term, as he is unable to do so due to age. Although he's got lots of spunk and
He's
he
got lots of
certainly
experience
could.
too. He's so
he's
educated.
He's wonderful.
So what made you decide that you're ready?
Yeah.
Like-
So the timing was there, and quite honestly, the last thing that I had any interest in was the political world. That is not who I am. That is not
No,
what
you're
I
a
wanted
by the
to
book.
do.
You take care of business. You evaluate things, and I think dispense it pretty evenly.
Yes, yeah, yes. And the decision to run is because of my passion for municipal court. Municipal court, you are never sending people to prison for life because that's going up to the common pleas
Sure.
court. But you are touching most people in your community in one way or another at some point, whether it is grandma who got a speeding ticket, the guy whose house was broken into and he's the victim of a crime, somebody whose son has a drug problem. You know,
And that's probably a mainstay of your court.
it's a mainstay.
Yeah.
It's a huge issue. So that intro for so many into the criminal justice system starts in the municipal court. It is imperative that the public has respect for the criminal justice system and a buy-in, or it can't work. It won't work.
You're 100% right, and that's what we're going to touch base on in this show.
Yes.
Trust me.
Yeah.
We're going to go down a lot of different streets.
Yeah,
But before we get too far in depth, I'd like to get started with what I like to call our safety question of the day.
Oh boy.
It's the music.
Yeah.
It's the music that keeps you coming back. So our safety question of the day, we're all familiar with the protests of 2020, specifically the Black Lives Matter protests that took place in Minneapolis. It's estimated that as many as 26 million people have participated at some point in the demonstrations throughout the U.S., making them the largest protest in U.S. history. Having said that, what was the cost of damages in one of the most publicized events in the BLM protests in 2020?
Oh.
Just make you throw a dart at the board.
Oh no, you're going to make me throw a number out there?
If you had to guess.
20 million.
Wow.
Apparently not.
Just a bit outside there, folks. To quote Bob Euchre, just a bit outside. The cost was estimated in excess of $2 billion with a
Billion.
B in damages
Wow.
nationally.
Wow.
Highest recorded damage from civil disorder in the U.S. history, surpassing the record set during the '92 Los Angeles riots. Was only about $1 billion.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That was at one specific location
Throughout,
or nationwide?
throughout,
Okay,
throughout.
Nationwide damages.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
kind of crazy. I
it
mean,
is.
you know,
Awful.
you remember the LA riots
Yeah,
in
well,
1992? You were
yeah,
probably,
oh,
what,
yeah.
4?
Yeah.
Something like that?
I was a freshman at Ohio State. I remember it well, watching it on the TVs
And that was just, we watched cities burn.
Yeah.
We watched the city burn. It
Yes.
was total unrest.
Yes.
You know, a lot of these kids today will have to Google that and look back at it and say, boy, that was really terrible.
Yeah.
And then show contrast.
Yes.
You know, all right, people do things when they're emotionally charged. We see that all the time. It is what it is.
Yeah.
We're emotionally charged beings. We're going to act out when we believe that we're in the right, but we have to put a cap on it. We've got to be able to corral that
Absolutely.
and do it in the right way.
Absolutely.
So this kind of brings us into our next segment I like to call You Don't Know What You Don't Know.
Okay.
There I am again.
Music.
So I think it's safe to say that nobody is comfortable with the state of society today. I mean, the looting, the
Right.
vandalism, I mean, the thefts. It's gotten out of hand.
Yes.
And the good people are doing their best to stay good.
Yes.
Currently trending, which this just chaps me, is this soft on crime initiative that's going on with these prosecutors. It's bad enough we have a dramatic lack of decency and morality and a lack of concern for consequences. They're making it worse.
Yes.
You know, why is this happening? What's the motivation there?
So I think at the heart of the protest was this public scream that we aren't happy with the relations between the community and the police. It's a call for action. So this pendulum swung, and it swung really far into this criminal justice reform world that said to right these wrongs, we're going to do it by, and you watched all these
But you
policies
can't
roll out.
turn a ship 180 degrees. It has to be gradual.
Absolutely. So
Therein
what
lies the
we
problem,
s-
right?
Absolutely. So what we saw happen was these policies come out that said no arrest may be made for any nonviolent offense.
Yeah.
So what that means is somebody goes in and smash and grab, and police officers stand by and watch with zero power or authority to do anything about it.
So the orders came down to be derelict in my duty
They
of my sworn oath to go out and enforce the law.
They changed the definition of your duty in those
Yeah.
jurisdictions.
How about that?
Yeah. In Chicago, they implemented a no foot pursuit policy. So if you run after you smash and grab,
Well, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I?
Exactly, especially because everybody knows you can't be chased.
I mean, I worked in an era where, a department area, that there was a no vehicle pursuit policy
Sure.
unless it was a violent felony.
Right.
And the public was seriously at risk.
Yes.
And I understood that because you're causing more risk to bystanders
Right.
doing 100-mile down Main Street.
Yes.
But no foot pursuit? That's ridiculous.
And the theory behind the no foot pursuit was because as I'm pursuing you and I'm telling you get your hands up, it increases the likelihood of a critical use of force between citizen and police.
When you make me run, I get
Yes.
mad.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's an adrenaline
Yes,
issue. It's
and
physiological. It's not a mental thing. It's a physiological thing. It's a dog chasing a cat.
It
You're
is.
programmed to do that.
It is. And it takes you into danger spots where you aren't in the safety of the lighted streets. You're in a back dark alley. So when their hands don't come out, it does increase the likelihood that you're going to shoot. Now, I'm not telling you that I advocate a no foot pursuit policy. I'm telling you that that's where it came from. But the answer needed to be something other than no foot pursuit. Because
Yeah,
we're
in
this
theory, it all
mess.
looks good,
Sure,
right?
sure.
In practice, it doesn't work.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, I was a cop
Correct.
for 33 years.
Yes.
Trust me. I'm like right now, I'm boiling.
I know.
I'm
I
boiling.
understand.
It's just, you
Yeah.
know, it was equivalent to, hey, what happens if a protest comes to our town and there's 200 people marching right down the street, clogging up traffic, damaging buildings? What do we do? And I was told, off the record, I was told, we stand by and let them go through.
Yeah. So
And that chapped me too. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, we're the cops. This is a riot. This
Yeah.
is not a protest.
yeah. So
I'm
and
sorry,
there is
I'm-
a difference between protests and riots. There was a protest in downtown Warren after the George Floyd incident, and there was a large group and everybody knew what was going to happen, and the police did allow them. They knew the game plan. It was,
Sure.
we're going to kneel in the street, and the police blocked the streets to let that happen.
To keep them safe.
Yes, and then to keep them moving along. And luckily, it was actually, it was perfectly fine.
That's what we
because
call
there were
a peaceful
protest. Absolutely.
So similarly,
Yes.
I was called to work perimeter security for a protest on Courthouse Square by the Ku Klux Klan.
Yes.
Okay, not that I support their initiative
Exactly.
or their views,
Right.
but my job was to go down there, and we basically had to protect them, give them their freedom of speech,
Yes.
to say what they wanted to say, keep it peaceful, and
Yes.
you know, safeguard everybody's safety. Because
Yes.
you know, tempers flare.
Mm-hmm.
People are heated on both sides.
For sure.
And we did it. And speaking of heat, that was probably the hottest I had ever been. They were handing out ice cold towels for us. I mean, we were in full riot gear. It was ridiculous.
Remember,
But anyways,
I remember that well.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
But so why? I don't know. What's the motivation though for these prosecutors? I mean, they're doing some crazy things.
Yes.
I'm thinking where our society is becoming one that we coddle our offenders
Yes.
and label them as victims.
Yes.
You know, like, oh, it's not their fault.
Right.
He had X, Y, and Z. So
Right.
it's not really his fault. Let's give him this. Let's cut this down. You know, I look at the Los Angeles County District Attorney, George Gascon. letting criminals out of prison early and offering lenient sentences. This just, I don't get it. What do you mean you're getting out early?
Yeah.
You were convicted of X, Y, and Z crime. You were sentenced. This is your sentence. Okay, I shouldn't say. Let me go back. Good behavior. I get that's what kind of keeps inside the prison walls and jails
Right.
working well.
Yes.
So give them incentive to hey,
Yes.
do what you need to do. Show us you're remorseful. Show us you made a bad mistake and you want out and you're going to do better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
But when they're violent offenders, these are not the ones who went back on the streets.
Exactly.
Like in New York, I mean, you got a guy that was convicted 122 times or whatever. They let him back out and he went and hurt somebody else.
Yes, of course he did.
Without
right?
bail.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
it was a
whole
no
other
bail
issue,
thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Come
Yes.
on.
Yes. So in San Francisco, they had a very progressive prosecutor that they then recalled. So when he came in and was on that platform of progressive, everybody loved the idea. And then you see the reality of how that plays out.
Let's do this. Let's get that, oh, wow moment.
Yeah.
But then we're like, we get the, oh,
Yeah.
crap moment.
Yeah, exactly. We have to come back to the center. We have to balance it all. Reform and fair treatment, that is all great. We want and need that. Never at the price of public safety and jeopardizing the public in
So
any
when you
way.
take away the consequences,
Yes.
okay, I'm going to go back here. You take away the consequences, there's nothing to keep me doing the right thing and
Absolutely.
operating within the scope of the law. I look back to my childhood. My dad's Sears and Roebuck belt was the consequence if I screwed up big time.
Yeah.
And guess what? I may have screwed up once.
Yeah.
All I needed was the look after that. And I knew what was coming. Not to say that I ever got a beating I didn't deserve,
Yeah.
because I deserved a lot of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to say all of them. But those were my out of bounds. It's like if you're playing sports, this is out of bounds. You got to know the rules.
You have to draw that line in the sand, and you have to impose accountability for people who cross it.
But we're not doing that.
We're not.
I'm saying across the nation, we're
That's
not really
true.
doing that anymore.
But-
We've got so soft and so watered down and so coddled.
And it takes a common sense approach. When you are looking at people coming in front of the court, you have a whole realm of differences in people that you see.
Sure.
You will have that first-time nonviolent offender that you very well may be able to take down that diversion path, get them out of the criminal justice system. You don't want them labeled by that. You don't want them to not be able to get employed. They took care of business. They're on the right path. You have this other group that you have to heavily, heavily micromanage for a bit, primarily the mentally ill, which the criminal justice system is a dumping ground
Yes.
for, and the substance abuse problem.
That's a whole different show.
It's a whole different
That's a
show. We're not
whole
even going to
different
touch
show.
that. But then you have this last group of people who are just going to they're going to be antisocial behavior no matter you can't walk them down that rehab path anymore.
They need something.
It's
They need the belt, like I got.
incarceration.
Right?
They need the
I
belt.
didn't need the talking to.
They need the belt.
Yep.
And the
Yeah.
ability to assess who it is you're dealing with and deal with them appropriately.
That is so
is the
labor
key.
intensive.
It is, but it's a must. It's what we have to do.
I've seen
as
how
a
backed up our courts are here in
prosecutor. I
Little
know.
Warren, Ohio.
There are days that we have 70 defendants in front of us.
It's
70.
ridiculous.
It is. It's a whole lot.
So-
but if we just process people without paying any closer attention, we can never distinguish which path we need to be on, because you'll always hear this incarcerate versus rehab. Rehab is soft on crime. I say it isn't one or the other. It's often both.
Yes.
If you're a heroin addict that broke into my house and stole my TV, you need to do your time for stealing my TV, but you're going to remain a public safety risk until you are no longer
So
a
you get that
heroin
hook out.
addict.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're right. But I mean, we're going to go on and on. I guarantee we're going over time on this one. Out in California, I gotta get back to this.
Yeah.
Gotta pull us back to script here. But out in California, they are reducing felonies. Okay, this hopefully our listeners don't know this, and they're going to say, "What in the heck is going on?" They're reducing felonies to misdemeanors. They're calling them. This is so cute.
Yeah.
Out in California, they do such cute stuff out there. They gave it the name wobblers. They're called wobblers. That's their official term for these crimes. So you're saying, all right, well, what the heck is a wobbler? I'm going to let you know. A wobbler is a crime that can be punished as either a felony or a misdemeanor in California. Okay, I'm thinking maybe they're talking lower level, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's
Yeah.
try to believe that. Wobblers, in most cases, it's the prosecutor who decides whether to charge the wobbler as a felony or misdemeanor. Okay. You've got the discretion. You're looking
Sure.
at all the facts. You're weighing in on this person, just like you said.
Yes.
You can't blanket approach. You got to kind of look at each individual. All
Right.
right. Also, the judges can decide, blah, blah, blah. So what offenses are they talking about as wobblers? Let's get into that. Some of the most common California wobbler crimes include vehicular manslaughter. That's a good one. Yeah, sure, we'll make that a misdemeanor. Assault with a deadly weapon. Statutory rape. Child endangerment. Spousal battery. Lewd acts with a minor. Making criminal threats. Burglary, forgery, grand theft, stalking, carrying a loaded firearm in public. All of these that I would like to see reduced down to misdemeanors, right? As a
Wow.
law enforcement officer, as a good citizen, law-abiding citizen, I'm sure we should all be taken back in our seats right now saying, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Right. And
Why?
locally, I've never heard the term wobblers before.
Oh, it's
but if
official.
Our wobblers, those low-level felonies that may become misdemeanors, tend to be drug users with personal use heroin.
Sure, as opposed to trafficking.
As
Yes,
opposed
yes.
to trafficking, right? It's the user with the drugs that that get on the straight and narrow, doing well in treatment.
I'm
Those
okay
are
with that being reduced.
Absolutely, and that's where we go.
Lewd acts with a minor, burglary,
Insane.
forgery, grand theft, stalking, statutory rape.
Awful,
Give me a break.
awful, right?
If California breaks off and falls in the ocean, I'm not going to shed a
Yeah,
tear. I'm telling you,
yeah.
what they're doing is crazy.
Yeah.
So if you're successful and your felony offense is reduced to a misdemeanor, this is why they're doing it. This is what I found. And you
Okay.
don't know what you don't know. This is why they're doing it. The following benefits can all make your punishment less burdensome. I pulled this one. This is great. The misdemeanor may become eligible for expungement. Well, good for you.
Yeah.
You did all of these horrible things, or one of these horrible things, and now you can have it expunged so nobody has to know about it. That will allow you, in the case of most employers, that it won't be visible on your criminal record, and you'll be able to truthfully say on your application that you've never been convicted of a felony.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I want.
Yeah. Right.
I want to hire somebody. It's hard enough to hire somebody, but now you're going to be truthful because the prosecutors allowed you to reduce it down to a misdemeanor.
You to be a preschool teacher with that background?
Oh, it goes
Yeah,
on.
Yeah.
How about restrictions to obtaining certain professional licenses may be reduced? Your California gun rights may be restored. Well, that's what I want you to have when you're out there, stealing cars and burglarizing. I want you to be able to have that gun legally.
Right.
Your voting rights will not be impacted. Well, wait a minute. I always thought that if you're convicted of a felony, you didn't get to vote. That used to be the case.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to register them in prison.
Yeah.
Your right to serve on a jury will be restored. So this is what I want.
You would.
I or somebody like me makes that one mistake. Let's say drug-induced, whatever.
Yeah.
And now I've got a jury trial. And this is the guy who just had lewd acts with a child, burglary and grand theft, sitting up there because he's eligible, because they were all reduced to misdemeanors. He's now eligible to judge me, to choose my innocence or guilt.
Yeah.
Where do I get off?
Right.
Like, where's the off button here? Because
Yeah.
this is crazy. There are no consequences. no deterrence to this kind of soft on crime initiative.
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's not rock the boat and turn it 180.
Right.
We got to make a gradual move, but
Yeah.
they're not.
Yeah.
They've clearly
No, that's exactly.
turned that thing, and they're doing a Brody in the middle of the lake.
Yeah. And when you make these blanket rules and it doesn't come down to a case by case basis, we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
You know, it just, yeah. What are we left with? We
I don't
see
know
what
why
we're
you
left
didn't go into
with.
law enforcement rather than being a prosecutor, because
Yeah.
this is too much to deal with.
Yeah.
But I've seen you in the
Absolutely.
courts, and you do a good job. And I think for 90% of the courts throughout the United States, they're doing the best they can with
Yeah.
what they have.
Yeah, right.
These are radicalized ideas.
Yes, they are.
But they're coming, people. They're coming.
Well, they are. I mean, I can only do what the law allows me to do. So as the legislature changes the law, we're done. You know, there was a period where this idea of immunity. So if somebody overdoses and you call the police for a drug overdose, a law passed that said they have immunity and we cannot charge them for the possession of heroin or any drugs that were there.
Kind of like a sunshine-ish.
Yeah,
statute,
and the
okay.
theory behind it was because we didn't want people to let them lay there and die out of fear
Well, no,
of
we're handing them
somebody
Narcan
being
now.
in trouble.
I mean, we're handing it
that
out like
too.
it's Pez.
Yes, right.
All right.
Well, and as some of our officers had said, you put Narcan in one hand and you granted them immunity in another. You tied my hands behind my back and said, now go fight the war on crimes.
Yeah.
I'm responding to this mother's house whose son overdosed, and she wants him to go to jail because she needs that
And I
rock bottom
can't.
for accountability, and I can't do it because of this immunity.
I think, you know, a lot of people look to the police when they're at their wits' end.
They
They're trying
do.
to save their children.
Sure.
Who are adult children,
absolutely. Yes.
You know, and they're trying to save them. They're like, listen, I can't make him go. He doesn't want to go on his own. I need you. You're the
Yes.
authority. Make him go. And then we're like, as a police officer, well, I can't because there's this like law that's in effect that doesn't allow me to arrest him for this.
Exactly. And while it had good intentions, I get it. If my family member's overdosing, I don't want him to die because somebody's afraid of
Absolutely.
being
Absolutely.
prosecuted. I get that concept. But if we aren't all at the table talking when these laws come down and we're not all heard, they can't understand this flip side.
Well, I think I'm going to, you know, I try to be as apolitical as I can, but I think our government has become so divided politically.
Yes. Yes.
They've done everything they can to divide the people.
Yes.
I mean, through everything, vaccinated, unvaccinated, white, black, Democrat, Republican. When do we bring it back together? Because I can't come to the table
Absolutely.
and say, my ideas are the only ones that make sense, and this is what we need to do, and not listen to you.
Absolutely. I firmly believe that the vast majority of us live in this very moderate, centrist world, but everything is defined on the extremes.
Yeah, you got to join a team.
And the I don't want way over there, and I'm not way over there. I'm here. Bring it back. Let's come together. But everybody fears alienating the others on their team if they bring it forward.
I don't care.
and
I
we
want
just
50
stay in
acres
this
and nobody
mess.
around me. I
Yeah.
don't want to be around people. I mean, my wife will tell you that.
I know.
But I mean, it's like I said, even when I was working on the police department, you know, I talk to people, hey, there's your truth, there's his truth, and in the middle is where the real truth is at.
Yeah,
I'm going to listen to
absolutely.
both of you, and I'm going to make
Yeah.
my decision here. That's
Yeah.
what's called police discretion.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
You're going to give me some BS and taint it your way. You're going to give me BS, and I'm going to find out down the middle.
That's it.
This
Well,
makes
there's
sense.
truth and there's perception, and they often are very different from each
They're
other.
strange bedfellows.
They are. They are.
All right. Well, I go back to this, and we look at the soft on crime stuff. I don't know who the heck it's helping. It's certainly not the victim of the crime, and it's definitely not society.
Certainly
Just the
not.
criminal.
Right.
But we got to start somewhere. And like you said, we can't right the ship 180 degrees. We've got to bring it together slowly and layer this. This is how we're going to do it. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Eventually, we may not see it in our lifetime, but in our children's children, our grandchildren's lifetime, maybe it'll start making more sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. I look back, and if my parents hadn't disciplined me for bad behavior, I would have continued to do as I pleased.
Yeah.
So there has to be a consequence. And as a prosecutor, you need to spell it out and you need to dispense it.
Absolutely. There's got to be a line that when they cross it, that's that. And I think the vast majority of people agree with that.
Yeah. We're going to beat this one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, again, I talked about the serial shoplifter, 122 arrests, and then he was let out again.
Yeah.
And then went and assaulted somebody. It doesn't make sense. The same DA that wants to stop prosecuting marijuana misdemeanors. Okay, I'm not even too put off by that. But trespassing and prostitution, we're not even going to prosecute those.
Yeah.
We're too busy. Well, hey, I go back to when I worked in the steel mill. We had 3 shifts rocking.
Yeah.
Why aren't the courts rocking a second shift
Yeah.
if you're getting so backlogged?
Yeah.
I mean, money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you
right.
bring in more fines.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
but everybody's indigent as they
Yeah.
show up in gold jewelry and the latest in Under Armour. Right. Okay. All right. I just think it's become ridiculous. We're seeing people pushed off subway platforms, randomly assaulted, and the gun violence is crazy.
Gun violence is crazy.
We're seeing. I think what I see today on the news, gun homicides by juveniles is up 30% across the United States. By juveniles, these are 14 to 17-year-old
Yeah.
kids that are killing people.
Yeah.
So the soft on crime thing, we got to look at it. I think juveniles can't commit crimes. I get it. That's technically, but they are. Juveniles of our day aren't the juveniles of today.
No, they're this young group, and I mean, I can easily say from 16 to 23-ish year olds with the guns is just off the hook.
Now they're Gen Zers. Is that right?
I don't know.
I
where
lost
we
track.
are anymore.
Yeah. All I know is I'm the last of the baby boomers.
But I know that when proactive policing just in Warren dropped dramatically post, this Ferguson effect stuff, but proactive policing had dropped dramatically, and still the seizure of illegal firearms increased dramatically. So we are doing less proactive traffic stops, and we're still walking away
with
a record number of
and
illegally
we can't send them to the
possessed
Ukraine?
guns.
Why can't we help these people out instead of burning them?
Yeah.
It's another show.
Yeah.
All right. So apparently we've gone past the slippery slope and are effectively sledding downhill and gaining speed rapidly. I think you mentioned it. It's really similar to deinstitutionalization in the 80s.
Yeah.
We just kind of opened up the floodgates.
We did.
And everybody behave on your own.
Yeah.
And we've kind of done that with the soft crime thing.
Uh-huh.
But when Joe Citizen defends, it's a whole different story. Anyways, so we're going to keep looking around here, and we're going to expand a little bit on this. Let's look at the rise of protests, which, in my opinion only, so everybody out there take note, is just something that grew from being rewarded for bad behavior over years. I think, we became softer parenting, helicopter parenting. My kid's not wrong. We defended our kids instead of, if my dad got called to the school because I did something wrong, I was in twice as much trouble when I got home.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go home.
Right.
I'd rather the police take me.
We
don't have
That's
that
how
anymore.
I was raised.
But we rewarded bad behavior.
Yes.
I mean, we look back. It used to be that a protest was peaceful. I look back when my parents, they worked laboring type of jobs, and they were union, and the unions went on strike for better wages, better conditions.
Yes.
ABC. They picketed on the sidewalks. They did not obstruct traffic.
Right.
They did not obstruct for the most part. There may have been some wildcats out there.
Yeah.
People coming in and out. Yeah, you might have got called a scab. You might have got yelled at, but they had to keep moving. It wasn't just sit stationary. You pretty much had to keep moving. You couldn't obstruct everything. And it was peaceful for the most part. This is going back away.
Yeah.
Probably the most peaceful protest was by Martin Luther King
Yes.
Jr.
Absolutely.
The Montgomery bus boycott. I mean, Rosa Parks couldn't sit within the first 10 seats of the bus back then, which is ridiculously asinine. When you look back at, looking from my viewpoint, looking back, it's just ridiculous.
Right. Right.
I don't care what
It's
color
something
you
we
are.
can't even imagine.
Yeah,
at
what
this
color you
point.
are or what
Yes.
language you speak.
Yeah.
You're equal to me.
Yes. Right.
That's bottom
Right.
line.
Right.
So they wouldn't let her sit there, so she got thrown off the bus, and Martin Luther King Jr. said, hey, guess what? All the blacks, we're not taking this bus anymore. We're going to boycott the buses.
Yeah.
And it impacted them.
Yeah.
And it was peaceful.
Yes.
It was peaceful.
Right.
No businesses were looted. The businesses weren't destroyed. Highways weren't obstructed. There weren't $2 billion in damages.
Yes.
Okay. So that was the perfect example. Okay. Somewhere along the line, we lost that.
Mm-hmm.
The BLM movement of 2020 just went and exploded. It was a protest on steroids, fueled by hate
Yeah.
and anger, and we lost a lot there. We look at these, and cities were destroyed, people were hurt, billions of dollars in damages. As many as 2,000 law enforcement officers were injured during trying to quell these situations. These were riots.
Right.
And
Yes,
Tracy,
they
I
weren't
look at you.
protests. That's right.
A peaceful protest is a protest.
Yes.
You can have that. I encourage that. That's fine.
Absolutely.
Speak your mind. Say what
True.
you need to say.
Yes.
These were riots.
That's a different ball game altogether.
Why aren't we addressing that?
Yeah, there was an attorney from Ferguson that spoke at a national conference we were at, and she did a presentation, lessons learned from the riots after the Ferguson incident. And in that, she said when the protests started, the first marching orders that the police officers were given is do not let them come off the sidewalks, cannot be in the roadway, stay on the sidewalks. Well, they stepped into the roadway and they changed the rule and said, okay, as long as there's one passable lane, they're okay in the roadway.
We're going to try and work with this along the way.
As long as they're not being violent. Well, all we're doing is changing that line of accountability, so they're going to keep pushing it, right? So now you let them into one lane. Well, now they're going to overtake the second lane, and we said, and don't, if they get violent in any way, now we'll crack down. Well, they start throwing water bottles. And then the rule was water bottles don't matter because that's not going to hurt you.
Have you been hit by one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
take one upside the head and see how that feels,
Right.
or in the face. So they kept changing where they were letting them go, but everything they told them not to do, they came back on and made a new target, a new line. Why wouldn't they keep pushing it?
You're enabling
Absolutely.
this
You're
protest to get
encouraging
worse.
it. You're
I say
yeah.
protest.
Yeah.
Cut that.
Yeah,
Riot. It may have
Yes.
started out as a protest.
right.
It evolved and became a riot.
Yes.
But guess what? We didn't have the manpower to stop any of that.
Not at that point,
You
but if
know.
somebody's arrested when they take their toe off the sidewalk
first
into the
one.
road,
First rule of
maybe
riot:
it stops.
go for the ringleader. Go for the guy
Yeah.
that's making the biggest,
Yeah.
upheaval.
Yeah.
Grab him and drag him out, and the
Yeah.
other ones are going to go. I don't want that to be me.
Yeah, show
So-
that you mean what your lines are.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simply, it's written out there.
If
But
we appease to what they want to do, they're going to keep doing it.
we're give them an inch,
Yeah.
they're going to take a mile,
Yeah.
and that's what happened.
Yeah, sure. There was no accountability.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, hey, you have the right to protest. Go ahead. You have
Please
your rights.
protest. It's beautiful.
Your First
That's
Amendment
fine.
right gives you that, right?
Sure.
Go talk.
Definitely.
Don't incite
this
violence.
This is not about protest. This is about hurting people and hurting property.
Yeah.
It is about terrorizing
Yeah.
our community.
And let me be fair in what I say. It's no different than the attack on the Capitol.
yeah,
It really
right.
wasn't.
Absolutely.
It really wasn't.
Yeah.
Because if you're attacking the Capitol, you're not doing any good. You're not promoting your cause.
Yeah,
You're just wreaking havoc.
that's right.
You're hurting people. You're
Exactly.
damaging things.
This isn't how
They're
we
equal.
accomplish.
Look at
Yes.
it.
Yeah,
They're equal. They're
Yeah.
both wrong.
yeah, yeah,
Now, had they been cordoned off and said, okay, talk how you want to talk.
yeah,
If you're pro-Trump, well, go ahead. We'll hear you.
yeah,
If you're not, we'll hear that too. Whatever your views are.
yeah.
but you can't go out and damage stuff and hurt people.
Yeah.
We didn't do a good job of quelling all that.
Right. And time again, I know for many of the protesters, their frustration was being accused of creating all of this chaos where,
And there might have only been a handful that started it.
and quite often it's people who have no interest, care, or concern about the underlying issue. It's an opportunist, right?
It's gang
if
mentality.
I'm running into Walgreens and stealing everything I possibly can because the city's burning,
Well,
I
if
don't
you're doing it,
really care about
I'm
what
running in there and
happened.
doing the same thing.
Exactly. And it's not really about George Floyd or the treatment
That was
of
the
black
guys that a lot of the crime took place under. They flew that flag
Yes.
to be able to commit different crimes and to say, this is my safety net.
Yes.
This is why I did it. Well, not to all of them.
Undermining
What
the
actually
cause
happened.
of those that were trying to do it correctly.
Correct.
Because now they're not being heard because
That's-
it's overrun by the
You're
idiots.
looked at completely differently
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
I absolutely.
Yeah.
That's wow. See, we're wrapping up a show already.
Yeah.
We're in agreement. I've got nothing else to argue. I've got no points to bring up. No, but it wasn't. It was out of control and endangering our very way of life. And then it was stopped.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, didn't it seem like it was this city, this highway, and then
Yeah.
nothing. A magic
Yeah.
cloud just happened and poof,
Yeah.
it stopped. Was it COVID that stopped it? Was it change in government that stopped it?
Yeah. I don't know.
I know. I'm not gonna.
I know.
You're running for office. I'm not
Well,
gonna throw you
no,
under the bus.
I don't
yeah.
know what stopped the protest. I have theories and understanding of what spiked the crime rate afterwards, but I don't know what stopped.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. But it was just kind of crazy that it did just stop.
Yeah.
It came to a standstill. Well, this brings us to another little segment I like to call reaction time.
Okay.
You're smirking at me. What's he coming up with next?
Oh no, what's he about to do?
So, I mean, we look at these soft and crime DAs. We've talked about it. I often wonder, are their actions or inactions even complicit in some of the behaviors that are being permitted? Yeah. I know that's a stretch, yeah. But that's on me. Yeah. How do we fix it? You touched base on it. You said we got to come together. Yeah. We got to take this side and this side and find, like you said, rehab.
Yeah.
Versus, rehabilitation or reform. What do we do?
Yeah. So, in policing, there's this fundamental concept of we police by consent. Society tells us what it is they expect. So when society speaks and they say, we want safe neighborhoods, is that what we're listening to? Are they saying we want completely left alone and no police whatsoever?
So we'll just be vigilantes instead.
Just be vigilantes instead. And that has to come down to the middle. We have to do a centrist approach that says it must be public safety plus fair and just. And so you are looking for people who will implement and not come from either side of this dramatically swinging pendulum that's got us in disarray.
When it does, even just to our little city here, our area, you do see when things start getting bad, I won't say vigilante, but the neighborhood watches start popping up more frequently.
Sure.
People start taking a more active role in their neighborhood.
Absolutely.
Which I encourage everybody. Hey, listen.
Yeah.
When I was 4 years old, many, many years ago, when I was 4 years old, I walked probably quarter mile-ish by myself from my home to where the school was, to kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine that today? Back then, every neighbor knew, there's Bill Barna.
Yeah.
That's Paul and Mary's son.
Yeah.
And as I made my way down the street, everybody was watching.
Yeah.
There was no harm going to come to me.
Yeah. Right.
That was the neighborhood approach. It took that village to raise that child. We need the village to come back.
Absolutely, we do.
And we're just so segregated and separated from each other.
Yes.
That we go to work and we come home, go in our house and we turn our lights on. We don't go back outside. We don't even know our neighbors.
Yeah. No, right. This term, the Ferguson effect, that was the increase. It's the theory that crime increased post the public scrutiny on police. And it was, what is this all about? And there's two primary theories of it. One is that proactive policing dropped, and if proactive policing dropped, crime is going to soar. And if you look at arrest rates, what you see is a lot fewer arrests for misdemeanor offenses or the less serious offenses. You're still going to respond to the shootings, the murders, no choice, right?
Sure.
But you aren't dealing with that stuff that's more
stuff.
discretionary.
I hate to say petty, but yeah, petty.
Yeah,
yes.
pettier, sure, absolutely. So in addition to that, if police are fearing making public contact and not willing to do a proactive traffic stop for fear of being accused of, racial profiling or harassing people.
That was always a concern of every officer out there. I mean, let's call it for what it is. It's
yes.
a card that gets thrown up there.
Yes.
And that's why we went to body cameras and mics and everything else. We had to start justifying our actions because people looked at us as guilty of whatever was being
right.
Thrown at us.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. So proactivity did drop. I was part of that. Yeah,
yes,
I get it.
Absolutely. So proactivity stops, and now what I've tried to explain to different groups of people is that when you call the police because there's a lot of gun violence in your neighborhood and you're upset over gun violence, they're not going to go, Johnny has a gun and is about to fire a bullet, I'm Superman, I'm going to jump in front of it and stop it. They're going to make proactive traffic stops if the guy who doesn't come at a complete stop.
We'll flood that area with cruisers, and people that are doing this gun, they won't want to be there because the police are too close.
Yes, absolutely. Or we'll find their guns when we traffic stop them, and then they can't shoot anybody.
They're going to go somewhere
that
else.
Evening.
Yes. We're going to get them out of our area, right?
Yeah, right.
But you're right. You're right with that. I remember going back. There's this it was a human resource class. It was like ditto, do it to one, do it to all.
Yeah.
So we have to have equal disbursement of the law.
Sure.
Now there are extenuating circumstances. Bill comes in with something completely different than what Tracy's baggage is when she comes in.
Yeah.
We are all different, and they're all different circumstances.
Right.
But I think equal disbursement of that law is what's needed.
Yeah, of course.
Not soften it and say, oh, we're going to reduce this so you can go get a job and you can be on a jury next week.
It's paying attention to exactly what you have in front of you.
Yep.
Not based upon race, obviously. That's, yeah.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Well, this podcast could go for about 3 hours, and we still wouldn't scratch the very surface of what I'd like to talk about. But they're giving me the sign that says, hey, you're running loose at the lips, and get your guest out of here.
Yeah.
So, Traci, it's been great having you. I'm going to look forward here just a little bit and tell you that I thank you very much for being on our show. You bring a lot of experience, and what you say is very common sense, and I think that's what's needed here. In the disbursement of the law. The soft on crime is not going to work.
Yeah.
Your view on protests, I really agree with. It's, everybody's right.
Yeah.
But we've got to bring it together to come with one consensus. So, planning ahead, our next episode, we're going to talk about concussions and student athletes, something that is very relative, and I know I probably had a number of those. Special thanks to our show sponsors, Bolo Stick LLC, the door barricade device, providing safety and security to homes, schools, churches, and business locations across 42 states in the U.S. and internationally in 6 countries. Visit them at www.bolostick.com. And Rolf & Son Painting, where they don't just paint your house, they beautify your home. Call them today, 330-369-2400. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have your business advertised as a sponsor, go to safety365.us or contact us via email, podcast@safety365.us. As always, thank you to the Trumbull Career and Technical Center for making this podcast possible. For Safety 365, I'm Bill Barna reminding you to be aware, be proactive, stay safe.